Today, we are in the middle of a series. If it's your first time here or first time in a while, in the middle of this series called The Stories, where over the course of 4 weeks, we're taking a look at different parables Jesus told. And so if you've missed either of the first 2 weeks, again, you can catch them on our YouTube channel or wherever you get podcasts. But the point of these parables, Jesus would tell these made-up fictional stories to highlight spiritual truths in a way that people would understand. These stories have one point, one purpose, to emphasize something about God and his character or our response to it. And that's really the goal we've been trying to work towards together through these is how can we grow? How can we take what Jesus said and actually increase our understanding as well? And the parable that we're going to look at today has to do with the power of application. Now, I don't know if anybody remembers, there was a workout program I first heard about in the early 2000s called P90X. Anybody remember P90X? Okay, for those of you that don't, let me explain. P90X is like this all-out intensive 90-day workout program where you're just supposed to like shred fat like it's nobody's business, and you're supposed to get absolutely ripped. And it's hosted by this guy, Tony Horton, who I think at the time was like 50 years old and negative 12% body fat. Okay, I don't even know how this is humanly possible. And you know, they would show before and after pictures of people, you know, just them normal selves, and they did P90X and like, oh my gosh, it was amazing. And it was way before ChatGPT. So you know it wasn't AI, right? It was just like, these were genuine, I mean, Photoshop existed, I guess. But anyway, you know, and so I first heard about P90X from our founding pastor, Kevin. And I don't exactly remember how it was, but I'm pretty sure he was just watching late night infomercials one night. And this came on the TV, and, you know, for 5 easy payments of $59.95, you too can be shredded like this. And he got suckered into it, okay? He bought the program off the infomercial, paid full price and all that sort of stuff. And so when he started doing it, I remember the first day he came into the office after he got it, he just walked in and went, you know? Those of you that know about P90X, you know, do the X, right? And, you know, and he's telling us about how hard he was exercising and how much he was sweating. And he started, like, one of his catchphrases became he stole from Tony, just do your best and forget the rest. And, you know, and so for weeks on end as a staff, we're just listening to Kevin hype up P90X and about all the work he's doing. And he started using new words like plyometrics and stuff. And it was just a wild time, right? And so I'm sitting there and I'm in my early 20s listening to this almost 50-year-old grandpa tell me about all the exercise he's doing and how great he's feeling. And I'm sitting there thinking day after day, like, oh, I can't let this old man beat me at this, right? So I bought P90X as well. Now, because I understand how the internet works, I bought mine off Craigslist used, okay? So there's that, but I went all out, right? I bought the DVDs, I bought the book, I got the nutrition plan, I bought a pull-up bar and resistance bands, and, you know, anytime you're going to get serious, you got to buy new shorts and compression shirts and all that sort of stuff, and I bought fresh fruits and vegetables and protein powder and threw away all the frozen pizza in my house, right? And so I'm going to get serious. I'm going to lose some weight. I'm going to get shredded. I'm going to mainly show Kevin, right? That was my biggest intention. And, you know, go through the first day, sweat your brains out. It's hard. Second day, same thing. Keep going in this program. And I made it through a grand total of 3 weeks. Now, in case you can't do math, that's not 90 days, okay? So, you know, the 3 weeks goes, and then I kind of, you know, fall off the face of the earth for a little while. And a few months later, as Kevin's still kind of talking about it on and off, I decided, all right, I'm gonna get back in this thing, right? I can do P90X, so I pull out my new workout shorts again and put them on and get ready. And this time, I got to tell you, I made it a week. A whole 5 days. I probably didn't even do it over the weekend. And, then just kind of tapered off again. And a year goes by, right? It's when we had our first child and life just gets busy, all that sort of stuff, right? And so a year later, I say, I'm going to get into P90X again. I dust off the DVDs and pull out the workout bar and make myself a protein shake again. And this third time, I tell you, was the charm because I made it 3 days that time, okay? So I had the best intentions in the world to lose weight, to get shredded, to look like Tony Horton and all the other people. I wanted to so bad. The problem was I just didn't really follow through with it, at least not very long. Great intentions, but very little action to follow it up with. Now, I bought some DVDs and some new workout clothes and spent, $100 or something. Some of us, though, have spent thousands of dollars on a treadmill or a Peloton that's dustier than my DVDs. Some of us have been paying for a gym membership for the last 5 years and only scanned the card 3 times, right? And here's the thing. I know it's tempting when that treadmill gets set up and finally the basement's getting used and we put on our sweatband. We feel good, right? We feel like, oh man, I'm already losing weight. I can just tell. And we're shocked when we go stand on the scale and it's not any different, And I know it's tempting when you eat only 3 slices of pizza and an apple instead of the whole pizza sort of thing. And we tend to think like, oh, I'm really making progress. Here we go. I'm there. Got the best intentions in the world. Except it's not really the intentions, right? I mean, that's a good starting point. We need to kick things off there, but it's not until we actually do the work. It's not until we start exercising and then keep exercising that we actually get the results that we want, right? Intention is not everything. And it's way more than just exercise, right? So some of us want to go back to school and get our degree or get another degree or enter a new career field. Awesome, awesome intentions and goals and aspirations. But you can't just sign up for classes at the U and expect to get a degree 4 years later, right? We all know it. We have to show up to class. We have to engage in the labs. We have to do the work, study, pass the test. Intentions don't really produce much of anything. At our jobs, right? We all know intentions. I mean, just try telling your boss next time he wants you to, follow up on a lead or get started on a project. Yeah, okay, I intend to do that. And then just scroll TikTok for 8 hours a day in your cubicle. Good luck, right? We're not going to have a job for much longer if we just intend to do what our bosses say. You know the saying, it's the thought that counts? What a stupid saying, right? I can't think of one area in my life where the thought counted, If Elon Musk came up to one of us and said, I thought about giving you $1 billion. Nobody's going to buy a new house on that thought, right? And I think we understand this idea. Intentions are a good place to start, but good intentions on their own are not really all that good. But I think there's a breakdown for many of us when it comes to spiritual issues. When it comes to maturing in our faith, when it comes to this whole Christian sort of thing, I think many of us either forget that about intention versus action, or we think we can ignore it, or we think like, oh, that's not going to apply to me. And here's the reason I believe that, because in churches all across our country today, and maybe even for some of us sitting here, I have no idea, but there are people sitting in rows and singing songs and listening to some guy talk and whatever. And we think subconsciously that by showing up means we've done the Christian thing. Like somehow sitting in a service and, kind of forcing, okay, I wanted to go out and, go on a motorcycle ride, but I came to church instead. Oh, God showered the blessings on me, And I know that sounds kind of silly, but I wonder if somebody could really look at our hearts and our minds and the ways we think. It's almost like we think God is, like imagine God in heaven and he's like, oh my gosh, Jim's here today. Okay, Michael, Archangel Michael, come here. mark down Jim for attendance. Okay, and you know what? Front parking spot in Walmart tomorrow. Yeah, he was here. Oh, and oh my gosh, Sally came. It was the first time in 4 months. You know what? She's going to get a raise at work. Go ahead, Angel. Yeah, make that happen, you know? Whoa, Bob is here. And I know he's thinking about something else, but at least his butt's in the seat. You know what? It's like, we would never say that, right? That sounds absolutely ridiculous. But come on, somewhere inside, don't we kind of feel like that? Like we get a gold star because we sat here, or maybe it was we read a book or heard a podcast about being kind. You know what? Jesus was kind and we should be kind, and we finish the book and we already feel like, oh, well, I'm there, man. I'm just a kinder person by reading it. Count me like Jesus. I'm so awesome. Maybe we prayed one time over something that we're struggling with, and then we just magically expect to never have to deal with it again, never have to struggle again. And it's almost like we just think, well, I mean, I had intentions to do that, so therefore God should just shower the blessings down on me. But is that really how it works? You see, Jesus told actually 2 different parables to address this disparity that I think so many of us have between intentions and actions when it comes to spiritual growth. The first one is a story about 2 sons, and Jesus says this. A man with 2 sons told the older boy, "Son, go out and work in the vineyard today." The son answered, "No, I won't go," but later he changed his mind and went anyway. Then the father told the other son, "You go," and he said, "Yes, sir, I will. You can count on me, Dad." But he didn't go. And then, this is not the parable anymore, Jesus asked the people listening, which of the 2 obeyed his father? And because everybody listening is able to form critical thought, they said, the first. Because, duh, right? This is such a simple story. It's not like the parable of the shrewd manager that we talked about last week that maybe we can get confused on. This is just a straightforward parable. 2 sons, one with good intentions and one with bad intentions. But the father wasn't pleased based on their intentions or what they said. What pleased the father was which son did something. Which son actually went out and did what I asked. When Jesus told this specific parable, he was talking to a group of religious leaders, Jewish religious leaders who intended to follow God, intended to do what he said, wanted to be on his good side, be right with him. But Jesus said, you can't just intend to be that. These people didn't believe in him. They intended to be right with God, but they ignored the very first thing, the thing they should have done the most. And so Jesus tells this story to make sure that we get it clear. It's not about what we say we're going to do. It's about what we actually do. It takes more than just good intentions. Earlier on in Jesus' ministry, he told a similar parable. This one is actually after his famous Sermon on the Mount. And, here's this lengthy talk where Jesus talks about anger and jealousy and money and divorce and all these different things. And he wraps up this long teaching by saying this. He says, anyone who listens to my teaching and follows it is wise, like a person who builds a house on solid rock. Though the rain comes in torrents and the floodwaters rise and the winds beat against that house, it won't collapse because it's built on bedrock. It's got a strong foundation. But anyone who hears my teaching and doesn't obey it is foolish, like a person who builds a house on sand. When the rains and floods come and the winds beat against that house, it will collapse with a mighty crash. Here's the interesting part about this parable of 2 different builders. Both of them heard. The wise and the foolish builder both heard in this fictional story what God wanted, Jesus' instructions sort of thing. The wise one takes what he hears, builds on it, applies it to his life, and is better off because of it. The foolish one only hears, and that's where it stops. Doesn't do anything with it. And again, Jesus is telling us this story to highlight and to make sure we understand it's not just what we hear. It's not just agreeing with something. It's actually acting upon it. It's doing something with what we hear. Intentions are a great starting point, but there has to be application and action that follows it up. And I wonder, for you and I, what would it look like? What would it look like to do what God says? He has so many instructions for our life. The Bible is full of wisdom and advice. And here's the thing, I believe with all my heart that the more we follow what God says to do, the better life we will experience. Now, better doesn't mean easier. Better doesn't mean according to the American dream, but better in the sense of we will be better where it matters most. We will be better on the inside. We will be better in relationships with one another. We will have a better source of hope, a better source of life. We'll be better. We'll have a better perspective when storms and challenges come. But not only if we hear. James, the half-brother of Jesus, said, hey, don't fool yourselves into thinking it's only what you hear. We don't just hear God's word. We need to also do it. What would it look like for you and I to actually do what God instructs us to do? There's some of us here, maybe some of us online, and you know what? We just live with a lot of anger and resentment because somebody has hurt us. Maybe we were abused or taken advantage of by somebody else. Maybe we just, kind of feel that way because a family member or a friend, took something of ours or whatever sort of thing. And we live through most of our lives with just this dull sense of rage and anger. And, it's like this war going on in our hearts and minds. And we struggle to experience joy in life. And we struggle to trust other people. And man, that's a heavy burden to carry around. Some of us walk around with that every single day. God says we don't have to. And one of the instructions he gives us to be free of that baggage, that anger on the inside, is to forgive. To forgive people who have hurt us. But here's the thing I would guess is true about all of us. We know about forgiveness, right? We've heard enough church messages about forgiveness. Some of us can point to, and we've highlighted the verses in our Bible about forgiveness. Even outside of the Christian realm, we know about counselors and psychologists and TED Talks just about the health benefits of forgiving people and how good it can be for us. Maybe even a lot of us have intended to forgive people. But it's pretty hard to actually forgive, to do it when we still keep holding on to grudges. What would it look like to follow through and to act upon? Okay, I intend to forgive. God, what do I do with it? How do we start that? I think maybe part of the action of forgiveness would be talking to God about it. Opening up conversation, not trying to pretend like that's something that he doesn't need to worry about. Let's talk to him. Let's be honest. Let's be open with him. Maybe part of the action is experiencing God's forgiveness for ourselves. I tell you what, it's not like a light switch sort of thing, but when we experience what God has forgiven us for, it becomes much easier to extend forgiveness to other people. That's an action step that we can do. Maybe an action step for some of us when it comes to forgiveness is being honest with ourselves. Not trying to pretend like they didn't hurt us or just trying to force our way through it. No, you know what? That did hurt. That wasn't right. Can we be honest with ourselves? I think an action step for forgiveness would be maybe saying the words, I forgive you. Now, sometimes based on the relationship or the hurt, we can do that face to face. Other times, maybe for for whatever reasons, we've got boundaries. Maybe we don't say it to them, but to actually verbalize the words, I forgive you for this. There is a difference between knowing about forgiveness, intending to forgive, and then taking steps to forgive somebody, putting some action behind the intention. What about for those of us who are married? Unless you've been married for a week or less and are still on your honeymoon, which I don't know why you'd be here on your honeymoon, but whatever, maybe you're listening from Cancun. I'll do your renewal vows if you pay me to come down. So, every single one of us who are married, I would guess we want our marriage to be stronger, right? We want to be more connected with our spouse. We want to be closer. We want to trust them more. We want to do more of life together. Those sorts of things. We all probably want to have a stronger, healthier marriage. And you know what's incredible? God gives us some instructions on how to get there. He gives us his eternal, heavenly, awesome advice for how you and I can have the best marriages possible. He gives us instructions about roles between husbands and wives and how they're different on purpose. He gives us instructions about his view of marriage, that it is this sacred, lifelong covenant relationship between a man and a woman where the two become one. He gives us instructions for just life that we can apply to marriage, about dealing with conflict and using our marriage to kind of show Christianity to the world. He even gives us instructions about sex, which if you're married, this is good news because he wants us to have lots of it, okay? Not married, none at all. Married, party town, it's wonderful. Guys, if you don't read the Bible, you don't know what you're missing, okay? It is chock full of good stuff, okay? But here's the thing. All these instructions God gives us, right? And yet I look at my own marriage, and I've talked to some of us about our marriages, and I just, we all kind of see in culture, we have a hard time actually doing what God says, don't we? It's one thing to know it, but it's a totally different thing to follow through. I think there's so many of us in our marriages, God's instruction is husbands and wives have different roles, and yet we don't follow that instruction. We're competing with each other. How's that working for us? I think for many of us, we stood at an altar somewhere, maybe a courtroom or something, and we said the words, I do, but our lives are not unified. We split finances. How can we be unified when you're splitting money? This is mine and this is yours. How can we be unified when we're parenting in two totally different styles? How can we be unified, two becoming one, when we're working towards completely opposite goals? That's not one. I know for my own marriage, one of the things I'm convicted of and trying to learn is how to deal with conflict quicker. And I know, don't let the sun go down while you're still angry, right? I could point you to the right Bible book and chapter to find that verse. But there's a big difference between knowing and doing. Is it hard work? Yeah. Marriage is one of those things where it takes two to tango. I understand that as well. But for you and I, personally and individually, when it comes to our marriages, do we just hope we get a better one? Or are we going to actually do what God instructs us to do? Same thing with parenting, same thing with finances, same thing with finding the source of peace in our lives. In fact, I want to show you a list of things. These are topics that we have covered in just the last 24 months at services like this. At our church in the last 2 years, these are things that we have talked about, God's instructions for our lives. What does the Bible say about all these sorts of things? I think every single one of these would be so good and so beneficial for us. But maybe you could ask yourself a question, and I could ask myself a question. What have we done with any of this? We hear it, we sit here for a message, but are we doing what God wants us to do? I mean, God offers us rest. I mean, how many of us would like to feel this supernatural rest and contentment on the inside? And he tells us, hey, slow down, simplify your life. Don't get caught up in the rat race of this world. Don't get distracted. How many of us have done something with that? Have any of us actually taken what God says and chosen to simplify our lives? What about thinking about heaven? There are challenges that we're all going to face. There are struggles and problems and everything from broken relationships to bad news about health to something with finances. There are storms in life that we will all face. God says, think about heaven. Set your mind on the realities of heaven. Are we doing it or not? I think, managing emotions, engaging in gratitude. Gratitude is something that would change every single one of our lives, even if nothing about our lives ever changed. God has done so much for us, but are we going to express our gratitude? And you know what? That takes some work on our part. That takes retraining our hearts and minds to notice the good things, to express gratitude, to choose to have a different perspective, to allow God to develop and grow that in us. God hasn't called us to just be hearers of the word, but to be doers as well. God doesn't want us to, again, good intentions are a great place to start, but they don't on their own produce any real change in us. God will do his part. We can trust him with that, but it's not all up to God. And sometimes I think we sit here and we just expect what God offers and promises and tells us what we can have to just show up in our lap tomorrow. That's not how it works. We have to respond. We have to make choices. We have to make decisions based on what God tells us to do. Jesus told these parables trying to talk about, I don't know how to get myself or even the rest of us to understand this, but I actually called in a favor from a celebrity friend of mine to record a little video to maybe kind of encourage and motivate us. And I just want us to watch what he has to say for us.
Do it! Just do it! Don't let your dreams be dreams. Yesterday, you said tomorrow. So just do it! Make your dreams come true! Just do it! Some people dream of success while you're going to wake up and work hard at it. Nothing is impossible. You should get to the point where anyone else would quit, and you're not going to stop there. No, what are you waiting for? Do it! Just do it! Yes, you can! Just do it!
What is that? Just do it. Amen. Let's go home. No. Listen, on a more serious note, remember the parable of the two sons? Which one did what his father wanted? The one who actually did something. The parable of the two builders. What was the difference between the wise and the foolish? The one who did something with it. God, out of everything he's done for us, in light of his heart for us and the life he offers and the instructions he's given us, he wants us to put our faith into action. To not just listen, to not just stop with thinking about it, but to actually follow through and apply what we hear, apply what we learn to our lives. And so here's the challenge for every one of us. Myself and each one of us and everybody online, the challenge is this. What is one area in our lives where we know what we should do, but just haven't started yet? I mean, that's just a great question to ask for anything in life. But if we narrow it down specifically to spiritual issues, things that God has instructed us to do, what is an area in your life where you need to take an action step? Where you know enough information, where maybe you've even got the right intentions, but you're ready to take that next step. What is that one thing? For some of us, maybe it is our marriage. For some of us, maybe it's parenting. For some of us, I think a great action step is just spending more time with God. Maybe there's honestly some of us that, you know what, an action step is I want to read and learn more what God says, his instructions for a specific area of life. I wonder if an action step for some of us might be taking what we talked about last week. Hey, how can we rethink our resources in light of eternal realities? We heard the message and maybe we even felt a little like, yeah, I want to do that. Let's do it. And then what would it look like to begin that process? Do we need to write it down? Do we need to put a reminder on our phone every day? Maybe we can really take a big step and share that action step with a trusted friend or a family member and have them join us in this and encourage us and hold us accountable. But here's the thing. If we want to mature spiritually, if we want to experience the life that God says we can have, then it's going to be up to us to take steps, to take action in partnership with God. He has his part, but so do we. Let's close today by praying together. Father, I thank you so much that your heart is for us. You have the very best heart for us. You want us to experience the best life possible. You love us so much, and you have given us your word, your instructions for how we can experience that more. God, what an amazing, you don't owe us that. It's not like we deserve for you to tell us those sorts of things, and yet, because of who you are, you share that with us. And God, I ask for myself, I ask for everybody here listening to this, I ask that you would give us the courage to start taking steps, to start putting what you say into action. And Father, I know there's so many what ifs, and there's fears, and it's definitely going to be more challenging than just doing what we've always done. But God, our heart is that we want to follow you more. We want to do what you say. It's just, God, we need some help with that. And so by your Spirit, in the relationship with you, would you strengthen us from the inside out? Again, give us courage to follow through. Lord, would you enlighten our hearts and minds to see more clearly the steps that we should take, and then walk with us to actually live that out.